All right, everybody. Shalom and welcome back to the Yishai Fleischer Show. We haven't been on together for a few days, and that's because it was Hanukkah awesomeness. But now we are back, and we're going to start the show in just a minute. We're going to get everybody, give everybody a chance to join us, and we are with Rav Mike Feuer. Rav Mike, shalom and welcome.
Oh, shalom. I'm going right now and share this everywhere I can.
You just go crazy and share it, and everybody else is also welcome to share it. And I'd love to hear a comment from our live viewers on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, how the sound is, if the sound is good, if everybody's hearing good volumes, if visuals are good, if my t-shirt
good vibrations.
Good vibrations. And we got a lot to talk about today, but just like Aladdin, just like, not Aladdin, but the what's it called? The genie in the Aladdin. It's a lot of content, but it's a little bit of space. That's right.
That was the best line in the whole movie.
That's the best line in the whole movie. That's right. So we have Zinni saying good afternoon, watching from Nigeria. Shalom, Zinni.
Shalom, Zinni from Nigeria.
Zinni from Nigeria. And his name here is, let me just put it up on the screen, Zinni Sunday. Good afternoon, watching from Nigeria. All right, Zinni Sunday. God bless you. And our good friend Lou Weiss is with us. He says, welcome back, looking good. And our good friend Anna says, very good of everything, meaning to say everything is going just great. So thank you very much. Okay, let's start the show. Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show, broadcasting live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on the Land of Israel Network. And you're a part of it wherever you are. So thank you so much for joining us. And today we have the great privilege of having back on the show our beloved Rav Mike Feuer. Rav Mike, welcome back to the show. We missed you.
It's great to be back. Well, like life gets in the way sometimes.
That's right. Well,
life gets in the way.
Well, we'll get to it in a second. Yesterday was one of the tougher days in Israel in a long time. There was a lot of bad stuff that happened yesterday. But before we get into that, the week beforehand was Hanukkah, and both you and I were off, so much so that I did something or didn't do something that it usually is not done, which I didn't do a show. I did not do a show. I skipped my show altogether. And
yeah, so did I.
Right, that's a big rarity. And so, but that's the power of Hanukkah. It was an awesome Hanukkah. Both you and I went on vacation, which is another way of saying we spent good time with the family.
That's right.
And also
good time and good money.
That's right, good money. That's right, and also good time in Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael. Got to see Eretz Yisrael. You went up north to the Golan. Is that right?
That is indeed the truth. Went to Avnei Eitan, the beautiful yeshuv on the southern part of the Golan Plateau, overlooking Kinneret, waterfalls, mountains, green. It was great.
That's great. The Golan is great. Waterfalls are great. And my general tendency and trend is to go down south during Hanukkah. So we went down to the Negev. We stayed at Timna Park, which is basically the Sinai Desert. And then went down to Eilat, rented a boat, jumped into the Red Sea in the middle of the sea, man.
Wow.
It was awesome. It was just awesome. So great to be alive. And I understand why people like Zinni write the following. They write from all the way from Nigeria, say, Rabbi, I want to be Jewish, says Zinni. So our first recommendation usually is, the first thing is, learn more about Judaism and learn more about the Bible and about the commandments that even Gentiles have according to the Jewish narrative, the Jewish story, the Jewish Bible, the 7 commandments of Noach. There's a lot to learn about that, and being a Jewish person and a believing and faithful and God law-abiding Jewish person is a big task.
It might be biting off more than you really need to chew.
That's
there
right.
There are other avenues to God that are open to everyone.
That's right. So that's definitely an opportunity. We also have a shalom from Erica, all the way from Sweden. What am I talking about? Sweden, and just got confused, and I actually wrote Erica an email today on Facebook, and also to Ibuten Sahartain Saya from Holland, and Joel says, good afternoon, Rabbi Fleischer. And Anna says, I am a Noahide. She says, I am a Noahide. So there are people all over the world that are really coming closer to Judaism, the Jewish story, and to the great rebirth of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. As I was just telling Malka today, is it so hard to believe that there are people in the world who read the Bible and are like, wait a minute, the stuff that the Bible promises is going to happen is happening, and that's called Israel, and I want a part of it. I want some way to connect to that story.
And got on board, yeah. And the reality is we've seen increasingly over the last 200 years that people have awoken with all the complexity, etc., but awoken to, on some level, the simplicity of the story. It's like, oh, wait, there's a people who's playing out this drama, and we have an active role, and everybody is invited to join in that in whatever way they're capable. And some of those people have played very important roles, in terms of the Balfour Declaration and international politics, and others are just simple, good-hearted people that want to be part of the story.
Definitely. But what was the word you used? The simplicity? What was the word you said?
There's a certain simplicity to it. It's like,
right,
oh, there's a people,
right,
like, right. God gave this book, and these people are still around, and look, they're in that land again. Like I said, trust me, I get how complex it is. I make my living off how complex it is, telling that story. But on another level, it's actually kind of that easy.
It really is easy to join the story. And Joel writes, "Why push away people who want to join us?" I think the opposite. There's many ways to join us. We don't, and that's our Jewish tradition. We don't recommend people join the peoplehood as a first step. We recommend people take other steps because joining the peoplehood is a big responsibility. And I think a lot of people have an emotional connection. They want to be part of as we said, the story. But that doesn't mean that they necessarily have to jump into peoplehood. And that's just our way to it is actually our way to push people off a little bit and to say there's a different way. And then people who really, 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 really want it find a way in the end.
I agree, and I would just add that we have a major challenge of marshaling our forces from within right now. Now, sometimes those who come from without are a tremendous asset in that respect, particularly, as you said, those who fight their way in. But, I'm hesitant. I feel like the stakes are very high at being a Jew.
Right.
And there are many ways, like I said, many ways to attach oneself to God that don't necessarily involve biting off, not more than you can chew. Don't get me wrong. I think people are capable of an enormous amount, perhaps more than you need to.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one word that I wanted to kind of get stuck on, which is you said there's a certain simplicity. The big picture, in a sense, is simple, which is God made a promise to the forefathers of the Jewish people. The Jewish people went into exile, and now he's recalling them en road to the third temple. So that is the simple perspective. But when you get into the nitty-gritty of it, days like yesterday are anything but simple. Yesterday we woke up to find out that a Jewish woman, Esther what was her last name? Hargold.
I'm looking right now because I want to actually get her name correct.
Let's remember her good name, but her name is Esther, and she was a 52 years old, mother of
Horgan.
What's that?
Horgan, Horgan,
right?
Gan.
Okay, right, Horgan. She was a mother of 6. Lived in Samaria. Went out for a walk or a jog in the forest right down the street from her house. I heard her husband speaking today on the news. It's a very normal thing to do there. And she was murdered by her skull being smashed by an assailant. The security forces think that was an act of terrorism, of jihadism, of anti-Israel Arab action. And here's a life cut down by this incredible and very obviously vivacious woman. I say obviously because you see her pictures and you can see
immediately. Yeah, the pictures that people have been sharing are really
right,
noteworthy.
Right. This was a vivacious person, and she is no longer with us. And then that led to now this is all has not been really reported clearly yet.
Lots of pieces
but it seems like there was some youth who were very upset about this incident and decided to throw rocks at Arab cars. And the police came to try to chase them down. Then there was a vehicular chase. The police bumped into, rammed the back of the young people's vehicle. It caused it to flip over and actually ended up killing a very beautiful young man. I say that just because the pictures of him are just...
also striking.
Yeah, striking. And his name was Ahuvia, like lover of God or God loves.
Yeah.
Very painful. And on top of that, the Knesset practically voted to disband yesterday, or voted not
Not
to
to
avert disbandment. Right.
extend the budget
Right.
deadline.
And
Functionally to disband.
right. And on top of that, the Supreme Court is now entering into a process of trying to decide whether the Israel nationality law, which basically says Israel is the Jewish state, is constitutional or should be knocked down. And the likelihood is that this court is going to not just say everything's honky dory, and so all this.
I'm sorry. Can I actually pause? My wife is actually calling me, and I normally would not do this.
Absolutely. You go on.
Okay.
Should I take you off the
Yeah.
screen for a second?
Yeah.
All right. So I took Rav Mike off the screen for a second. That's okay. No problem. But with all that, we do have an incredible Torah portion that we have to get to. And that Torah portion, the Torah gives us strength to get through all of the challenges that we face out there. And as you can see by the picture that I have in the background, it's the pyramids, and that's because we're going to really be talking about going down to Egypt. This is when Joseph is going to duke it out, if you will, with Yehuda. And then after that, here comes Rav Mike. Are you back?
Yeah, family first. Sorry, family first.
Hey, with that's why this technology allows that, and also it's good for them to see that we put our family and our wives first. So
Listen,
good.
I mean, if the COVID era has done anything, it's erased the boundary between work and the rest of life.
True.
That flows in two directions.
Oh, and I forgot to mention. Did I mention that little thing that there's a vaccine, but there's a new strain. So
although God willing, the vaccine will work on it, but it is kind of scary just to think that this thing's out there, like trying to get a step ahead of the whole process. I don't know.
I just want to be careful because I bet I have a lot of folks on Facebook here who are like vaccine bad or whatever it is. I am staying a little bit more agnostic on it all. I have not from the beginning dealt with the corona, what the truth of it is. But we all understand, and I think you understand as well, Rav Mike, that even if this thing is a good vaccine, it is still a machinery of control over us.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable that as soon as you can make a requirement, or if not a legal requirement, a functional requirement, your ability to travel and enter into public spaces, etc., dependent upon getting this vaccine, even though it, is likely to save many, many lives, I don't have enough trust for the systems of power that I want to further empower them to sort of curtail my liberty to do something which I actually want to do. And be clear, I plan on getting the vaccine when that time is there. I'm not. But I don't like the power and control element. On that note, can I say something about the Supreme Court piece? Because of all those bitter pieces, the only one I think I have something to add of insight on is it's very important to understand what you meant when you said that the Supreme Court is right now passing judgment on the nation-state law.
Yes.
But Israel does not have a formal constitution in the way that, say, America does, as a document which was created a priori upon which the government rests. Israel made a choice. You can listen to my episodes about it in Jewish Story back in the beginning of season 3, if I'm not mistaken. Made a choice to basically take what's called shitat salami in Hebrew, which is to pass basic laws along the way, which in their sort of cumulative form represent what's called entrenched law, which then all other laws are subject to. It's the Supreme Court that elevated certain of those basic laws, those entrenched laws, to be a formal constitution, meaning they themselves created that constitution, and now they are deciding whether something which the Knesset declared to be part of that basic law infrastructure indeed merits. Means they're not judging the law according to a pre-existing constitution. They are simultaneously deciding whether this is included in a constitution which they themselves arrogated to themselves the right to decide on. So, this is, and as much as I'm sort of wary of making a statement like this is the death of democracy. And that phrase gets used a lot these days, and so therefore it's lost most of its sting. But I'm telling you right now, from a procedural standpoint, that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. And a disastrous situation.
And the very fact that they're attacking the nation-state law is in itself very telling. the nation-state law really defines Israel as the nation-state of the Jewish people. Basically was there in order to be a countermeasure to the idea that Israel is just Jewish and democratic, and therefore those two values are equal, saying, no, when there's a conflict between Jewish and democratic, it's first a Jewish state. That's why it was established. And now the Supreme Court, which usually leans more towards what they would call democratic, is now going to go through the process of trying to take out the teeth.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, be specific. It was the Supreme Court that elevated the basic law for human dignity, and I forget exactly what the phrase of it is, to constitutional status. Meaning they took it out of the normal basic law status and made it the standard by which the other judge other laws. The nation-state law was passed to force the Supreme Court to have balance, that there would be a companion to that. But now they're judging whether the Knesset has the authority to elevate under the law to that level, which they elevated.
Right.
This is judge, jury, and executioner, and it is not a good day for our democracy. Right. Or for our ethnic state, whichever one you want to pick.
Right.
Even if you're not into the ethnic state, it's not a good day for your democracy either. Because when one branch of the government takes that type of power, if it works for you today, it might not work for you tomorrow. Oh, we're getting some requests for the Parsha? Okay.
That's right. It's too personal. But before we go on, Rav Mike, you and I, we share a lot of things. We have a lot of things in common. Some things we're different upon.
Sure.
But there is one thing, though, that we really do share. One can, and everybody just looking at us right now can just see that from any distance, which is we both have beards.
This is true.
And therefore, we are going to join the Aleph Male Jewish Beard Care Revolution. That's right, okay? We're going to make our beards majestic with 100% natural beard oil and beard balm handmade in Israel.
I'm a big fan of the product, in fact.
That's right.
Wait, watch this.
Oh, here we go. Take it out. Okay, he's digging through his stuff.
It's a little bit of a stretch to get there, but all the folks
there it
out
is.
there in
it is.
Radio Land.
That's right. The beard balm. You are showing it now for all to see, and this is called Aleph Male, right? Which is like alpha male, but is it Aleph?
But it's about Jewish masculinity. It's more than just a beard balm.
That's right. And guess what? Great news. If you go now to Aleph Male, you are gonna and you type in the special coupon code Yishai 10%. Okay, you will get your own Aleph Male brand awesomeness for your beard. It smells good. It makes it feel good. It makes you a proud Jewish male guy from the land of Israel with beard oil from the land of Israel.
Sacred. You're a holy Jewish male.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay, and so that's Aleph Male. Thank you very much. And Yishai 10 is the coupon code, and they are proud sponsors of the show. And says Lou Weiss, he says, both of you have some gray hair. That is true.
Yeah. Thanks, Lou.
Aleph Male will not solve that, but it'll make the gray like a strong gray.
It'll make it distinguished.
That's right, like a wise. Like that's
distinguished.
That's right. That's not just a rabbi. That's a sage.
Oh. Okay. Let's get on to the parsha before we make total fools of ourselves.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay, but at least we'll do it looking good.
Yeah. And feeling good.
Vayigash is a powerful Torah portion because it's really about, first it's about Judah approaching. May we approach the bench, Your Honor. And it's Judah who approaches the bench, approaches this vizier, this king, this what's it called? Not king, but second in command. This
the vizier,
vizier. This, but also a wizard of sorts, seemingly, and he's going to approach him and basically tell him the story in his version about why he can't leave Benjamin down in Egypt and not show up in front of his father Jacob without bringing Benjamin back home. And Joseph is going to watch this, and he's going to hear this, and what he's going to say probably is that just like he is the son of Rachel, and he saw his brothers cast him off and sell him, his brother Binyamin, a son of Rachel, is going to be treated very differently with kid gloves. We must return him to our father. We've got to do the right thing. And he sees that the brothers, represented now by a changed man, by a repentant man, Yehuda, Judah, act very differently vis-a-vis Binyamin than they did to Joseph. and he's going to understand that something has changed, and then he's going to break down and cry and reveal himself to the brothers.
Yeah. I mean, the sense of revelation, I think, is very powerful there, and that's not a small word that you threw out, because this whole story has been driven by Joseph's dreams,
right?
And this sense he's had since he was a small child, that there's something larger trying to come into the world through him, but that really it was failures of relationship that were preventing it from finding its full expression. Whether it was Yaakov's failure in favoring Yosef, whether it was Yosef's failure in, sort of like not understanding and appreciating his brothers, whether it was the brothers' failure, etc. I mean, keep going. And that's why the ultimate revelation of Joseph to his brothers, right? Don't forget in that last parsha, like, that I'm seeking my brothers. Achai anochi, what's it? Anochi. Thank you. Right? That he's finally found them, and in finding them and in fixing those relationships, it's really God's power which is revealed. Because of course, the natural response of his brothers is like, "Oh my goodness, now we're caught." Even if they've done tshuva, so to speak, and are now treating Binyamin properly, still they've got to look him in the face and say, "Yeah, last time we saw you, we beat you up and threw you in the pit and sold you to Egypt." And he says, "No, you didn't. God sent me to Egypt."
Right.
And that's the revelation, right? Their fixing of the relationship allows him, probably for the first time ever, to fully accept that. I don't think you can undervalue that level at which he's able to accept that now that he's able to forgive his brothers.
Right. And he's had a long time to work on it, probably, minimally. We're talking almost 20 years minimally. He's had a long time to work on this. On the other hand, well, let me just read one verse so that we can kind of get a little Hebrew in. Chapter 45, verse 1. Mem He Aleph. V'lo yachol Yosef le'itapek. He could no longer withstand l'chol hanitzavim alav, all the stuff that is upon him.
He couldn't hold back, right?
He couldn't hold back all the weight that he feels. Vayikra, and he called out, Hotziu kol ish me'alai. Make everybody that's upon me leave, meaning to say, everybody get out of the room. V'lo amad ish ito, and there was no person with him. Bihitvada Yosef elechav, when Yosef revealed himself to his brothers. It reminds me a little bit this verse of a verse that we talked about a few weeks ago, which is Jacob was alone, and then he struggled with a person. So he's alone on the one hand, and on the other hand is struggling. Here, Yosef is. There's no foreigners. All the cast is away. It's just mano y mano, right? Mano a mano, right? It's just me and you. And he showed himself who he was, and he cried. However, Egypt heard him cry. Like everybody heard it. It says V'yishmeu Mitzrayim, V'yishma Beit Paro. The house of Pharaoh heard that as well. And he says to them, Vayomer Yosef Elachav, Ani Yosef. He says to his brothers, I am Joseph. Ha'od avi chai, is my father yet alive? And they couldn't answer him because they feared him. And in fact, the Medrash, great Medrash that I like a lot, says he spoke to them the holy tongue. They're like, no, you're not Joseph. And he told them all kinds of stuff about their life. They're like, nah, anybody could know that. Then he's like, let me show you my circumcision. They're like, all right, you're Joseph.
It's an awkward moment in Rashi. Yeah. She's like, here, come. Let me prove to you that I'm your brother. It's like, really?
Right, because they didn't believe it.
Well,
but then when they
at what point was he like, okay, I'll prove it to you?
Right. But that it's kind of humorous, but on a deeper way, I am part of the Abrahamic family. I'm not this Egyptian that you see before you.
Listen, it's not a small thing. I mean, for whatever it's worth, in our world, being circumcised is fairly common, at least amongst Americans in general. I don't know about Europeans, but you can't sort of overstate the unique nature of what you're speaking about in ancient Egypt.
Right. Right.
This was not a common phenomenon.
Right. And even to this day, in some places, it's considered an abomination. A related theme is the theme of kashrut, ritual slaughtering. And we just saw that Belgium came out with a decision that they're banning Jewish ritual slaughter and halal slaughter in Belgium. It's just a similar example to these people who think that they have a superior morality and that Jewish slaughter and Jewish circumcision is something that's
barbaric.
Yeah, barbaric, exactly. So he shows them that. Now, every year I say this to you, and every year I feel the same way. Maybe I feel a little bit different about it this year. I still find that the very things that made Joseph so off-putting to his brothers, he still has exactly those very character traits. Those very character traits of being somewhat a person who does not realize that his words could offend and could seem haughty.
He doesn't read the room well.
He doesn't, which is funny, right? Because you think he's a master of reading the room. He knows how to talk to Pharaoh. He knows how to wield power in Egypt. But there's something about the way that he talks to his brothers, which is off-putting.
Yeah.
And for example, verse 13, Vigadtem Levi, tell my father, not our father, tell my father, et kol kvodi, all of my honor b'Mitzrayim, in Egypt, et kol sheraitem, and all that you have seen, umihartem ve'oratem et avi hen, and you hurry up, you better
get on
up.
now.
That's right, and bring my father down here.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable. Every time I read that line in particular, kol kvodi, it's like, ooh, that's not a positive phrase. That's a biblical. It's a divine phrase. God says kol kvodi. Right? Humanity's not supposed to say that.
Right, exactly. Just wanted to to bring in the other topic, but Nadia says
that's an interesting piece of information.
She says Europeans and most Brits don't circumcise. Royal family does.
Okay, I'm gonna just gonna leave that one where it lay. But thank you for that point of information.
I think that was a good snippet, but we can go on.
Oh, come on now! We're just saying all those jokes. Grow up.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's go.
I'm not. Let it go. Moving on. I'm going to tell Ben that at this number of minutes, it's cutting that out.
That's right. Okay. But maybe what I've tried to come to a different consciousness this year is maybe the point is something that you just said a minute ago, which is even Joseph is a product of God. And his personality and his relationship and his story is engineered by God. And so therefore, even though you may not like on the interpersonal level his speaking patterns, his way, you accept at this point that that's the way it is. And that in some ways, I read once by Rabbi Nachman that I think a phrase that I liked very much. He's like, just like you can't exactly understand God, don't always expect to understand the righteous people.
Sure. You see actually a strong support for what you're saying in next week's parasha, when Yaakov Avinu finally passes away, and the brothers are immediately afraid that Joseph's just been waiting for Yaakov to pass before he takes revenge, and they come to Yosef and basically beg for mercy. You get from this the sense that as much as Yosef was welcoming and he wanted to make amends, etc., he was never really warm with them. Right. It wasn't what he was about. Right, he had stepped into his fullness, and he was going to take care of them. He was going to do right by them. He let go of, which is, by the way, let's just say, a rather superhuman accomplishment, lest we undervalue his ability to let go of the fact that his brothers beat him up, threw him in a pit, and sold him into slavery. And to really embrace the idea that God, everything is in the hands of God. Right. So yeah, it's understandable.
So like I'm gonna have to deal with Joseph the way he is. Like I'm not gonna try to defeat him. I'm not gonna try to change him. Like it looks like that's what God wanted, and that's the way. That. But at the same time, the challenge, Yehuda does pose a challenge to Joseph, and our sages basically read it as, I'm going to negotiate with you, but if you don't like it, I'm ready for conflict and war. And I'm a man of war, and I'm ready to fight you and Pharaoh, and to mess this place up. So that's a very important thing. In any case, let's keep going. He shows favoritism to his brother Binyamin. Again, same thing, which is this whole thing came because Jacob showed favoritism to Joseph. You're doing the exact same thing now, but. That's again my point is, which is like, okay, we're just gonna have to deal with it the way it is. Yeah. And they go up to Jacob, and he, just like the brothers didn't believe it, so does Jacob not believe it. They said to him, Od Yosef Chai. Yosef is still alive. By the way, just today, because of the murder that happened, I gave money to the Od Yosef Chai Yeshiva in Alon Moreh, right? Next to Shechem.
Yeah. It's not in Shechem anymore.
And he says, and he's ruling, and Yosef is ruling all of Egypt. And he didn't believe them. V'lo yamin lahem. Nah, come on, guys. Come on, what do you take me for? What is this? Is this a joke? And they talked to him, and they told him everything that Yosef spoke. But then, Vayaret ha'agalot asher shalach Yosef. He saw the carriages that Joseph had sent, and his spirit, v'tichi ruach Yaakov avihem. The spirit of Yaakov was enlivened. He was reborn. Our rabbis have an explanation about why these carriages were the ones that awoken him. But the simple meaning is he saw that it's real. There's like stuff. It's not just a story. Here comes these carriages from Egypt, and they're coming to bring him down. So,
and that's a very impressive display of wealth and power.
Right. It's like
where were the brothers? The brothers went down there to buy food, and coming back with like huge covered wagons and and donkeys full of food, and that's like whoa.
Right. This is real. Now everything is all good. This is so great. Joseph is alive. We're gonna be reunited. We're gonna get through this famine. Like my son, is the ruler in Egypt. Sure, he's not a doctor, but he's the ruler in Egypt.
His brother's a doctor.
His brother's a doctor. That's right. So but he's the ruler in Egypt. Everything is dandy. I'm going down. I'm going to live out the rest of my life, and Joseph is going to take care of me and the family. Everything's great. But there is one little wrinkle, and that wrinkle is, we, the family of Israel, have to go down to Egypt, and leave the land of Israel. And so, to me, one of the most romantic of all verses in the Torah, reminiscent of when God calls Jacob back to the land of Israel when he's in Haran, and he says, Anochi ha'el Beitel, I am the God of Beitel. Now God is going to appear to Jacob in another holy city, and that holy city is Be'er Sheva, his father's city, and his grandfather's city, Be'er Sheva, the today called the capital of the Negev. And he's going to go down there on the way to Egypt. It's the last holy stop on the way to Egypt, this holy city of Be'er Sheva. And God is going to appear to him in the visions of the night, and he's going to call him out, Yaakov, Yaakov. He's going to say, Vayomer Anochi Ha'el, the same term as Anochi Ha'el Beitel. He says, Vayomer Anochi Ha'el Eloi Avicha Al Tira Mirda Mitzrayma. Don't be afraid of going. I'm the God of your father. Don't be afraid of going down to Egypt. Ki legoy gadol asimech Hashem. I'm going to make you into a great nation there. Anochi ired imach Mitzrayma. I'll take you. I'll go down with you to Egypt. However, I'm going to bring you back up. Indeed, I will. Yosef yashit yado aleinecha, and Yosef will close your eyes when you pass away. But I'm going to bring you back up, and you will be buried in Hebron, at the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs of Hebron. I'll ensure that. But God says, I know this is a tough moment for you. On the one hand, you're going to see Joseph, but on the other hand, you're leaving the land of Israel. Don't worry. It's meant to be, and I'll bring you back to the good land.
And in a certain sense, this is the closing bracket to the journey of the Avot. Even though the story's not over, and Yaakov will have his time in Egypt with Yosef, and the very important, part of the lives ahead of his brachot. When you see this, Ki legoy gadol asim Hashem, right? That's the closing bracket to the promise with which this whole journey began. Lech lecha ma'aretzecha me'oladicha el haaretz asher areka ve'esed lecha legoy gadol, right? That's God's promise. I'm going to make you a great nation in Eretz Yisrael. And now Yaakov's like, we're leaving Eretz Yisrael. I'm not a great nation. I've got a bunch of kids. It's impressive, but God says, no. This is where it's actually going to happen. This is where the transformation from family to people will take place.
Wow. That's right.
So it's an important phrase there,
Very
not
good,
to be missed.
Very good. That's right. You're going to become a great nation, not just a great family, not just a lot of children, but Legoy Gadol. You're going to become a great nation, the Jewish nation. As you're explaining, they're going to be really formed in Egypt, and the great birth of the nation is the splitting of the Red Sea. I wanted to just throw out one more thought to you, which is, it's actually something very important to me personally, which is I actually think that Pharaoh also has dreams that he understands what they mean. And what his dream is, we all know it's about the 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. But my explanation is different. I think that what he's really dreaming is you Jews are going to come into Egypt and we're going to swallow you. You're going to get swallowed up in Egypt, and our culture is going to swallow you up, and there won't be any remnant of you left. That's why he dreams about the cows of Egypt, the ones that he says, I've never seen ones like this in Egypt, but that's Egypt, will swallow the shore, which is Joseph. He's represented by an ox. We're going to swallow you up, and the sheaves of unhealthy corn, unhealthy wheat is going to swallow the healthy wheat. By the way, one of my proofs is that the word bekaneh echad, which is the healthy corn, the healthy wheat that gets swallowed up, comes in one stalk, separates into 7. That word only appears about the menorah. The Balaturim says that it only appears on one other time, which is 2 times here and 1 time there, which is this 7. This is like the menorah. So anyway,
It's also
Egypt,
7 star, yeah.
Egypt is going to swallow you guys up. So when Pharaoh hears that it's time for Jacob to come down, he says, I'm commanding you to bring them down. But Joseph sets out immediately a plan to separate the Jews, a separate place for them to live in the land of Goshen, a separate behavior pattern, which is that they are shepherds, and that is the bane of Egypt. It's somehow disgusting to Egypt to have shepherds, because I guess the sheep, the cattle are the gods of Egypt. And so there's an immediate attempt at the end of this Torah portion to make sure that the Jews are not Egyptians, and that they're separated and not swallowed in Egypt like the dreams of Pharaoh.
Yeah, it's part of that power of God's promise to Yaakov that God will not only go down with Yaakov, but bring him back up, right? And then when Yaakov fulfills that promise, as we'll speak about next week, or when the sons fulfill that promise on behalf of God for Yaakov by bringing him back to the patriarchs and the matriarchs, right? It's because you're not from here. And this is why this is the archetype of exile. Remembering that exile is only exile if you believe you are other than where you belong.
Right.
And so what Joseph has to keep alive in the minds of the brothers and then their descendants is you do not belong here. Even though you're settling here and it's great here and we're gonna save you from the famine, etc., etc. Exile is an internal belief that I am not where I belong.
Right. And another way that they do that, all of them, is by making themselves look a little bit smaller to Egypt. It's like, we're not that special, and we're different than you, and you don't, we're not. And the most famous scene is that finally a great summit occurs. Jacob meets Pharaoh. Right? This is like an awesome, it's the meeting of, Putin and Trump. It's
I picture Yoda and the Emperor, actually.
Okay, Yoda and the Emperor, or whatever. There's many movies where it's like the final showdown or the final meeting, and Pharaoh says, "Gosh, how old are you?"
It's a great moment, huh?
Right. It's interesting. It's interesting. I just connected this now. Pharaoh is the only person in the whole Bible that we know that has a birthday.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, but
presumably everyone else did too, but he's the only one we get celebrating it.
Celebrated a birthday, and he's and maybe he's a little bit preoccupied with age. He's like, so how old are you exactly?
Well, I mean, we know this of the Egyptians. I mean, that picture behind you of the pyramids is a monument to how much the Egyptians sort of like worship. You could see it as worshiping life and fearing death. You could see it as worshiping death. But certainly it was important to them that there be a lasting monument. Right? Those are crypts that are behind you.
Right.
Any society whose leaders build such a monument to their own life or death, depending on how you look at it, is quite concerned about age.
Yeah. It would be fun to think about the tension between the pyramids and the Tomb of the Patriarchs, and how they work differently and how they're remembered differently.
That is actually a very interesting parallel. You're
because
right.
because these are both, like, I think about the only difference is that you, like, Egyptology is like, I was studying a little bit this week. It's long and hard to understand, and different kingdoms and different dynasties and all kinds of stuff like that. But in any case, there's definitely a tension there. In any case, Jacob's answer is, Vayomer Yaakov el Paro. Jacob says to Pharaoh, Yemei shnei megurai shloshim u'me'at shana. The years of my sojournings are 130 years. Me'at u'ra'im, few and bad, hayu yemei shnei chayai, were the years of my life, days of my life. Lo isigu et yemei shnei chayai avotai, and I did not reach the life of my forefathers, b'yemei megurim, when they sojourned. Vayivarech Yaakov et Paro. Yaakov blessed Pharaoh. Vayitzeh milifnei Paro, and he left Pharaoh. Today, I think I understand why. I was so troubled by this. Like, here's your chance to say how God is great. Instead, he's like, "Ay, my life, don't ask. Don't ask. Don't even ask. Ay. Don't even ask. Forget about it." But I think the answer is actually a Sephardic answer. It's a bli ayin hara answer.
Right, like no.
Yeah, no, nothing special here, nothing to look at.
I mean, there's also, by the way, some very sort of realpolitik wisdom in this, in that you don't want to appear in any way competitive with Paro.
Right. This
is not going to end well for anybody.
Right. And then there is one of the most enigmatic parts of the book of Genesis, which is Joseph's economic manhandling,
reorganization,
economic reorganization, wealth distribution.
It's almost a Keynesian economic approach.
Well, I mean, but there is something economic that's happening here. That's for sure.
It's a complete restructuring of Egypt's economy into a slave nation,
right?
Owned personally by Paro,
right? Which all comes from the realization of Pharaoh's dreams, which Joseph interpreted, which he understood that the famine is going to keep going. And so instead of kind of making sure that everybody's going to make it through this period on their feet, it's exactly the opposite. He turns them into dependents, serfs.
And slaves. Serfs. This is serfdom.
Serfs, I think, it's a serfdom. I think, yes.
Yeah, he literally, because he purchases the land, then he purchases the people, and then he makes sure that the people that have to work the land continually and give a portion of their labor to Paro.
So
yesterday,
Eugene Kantorovich, my good friend who prays with me in the same synagogue, says to me, he goes, well, mida keneged mida, and I like how do we translate that?
It's a measure for measure, literally.
The measure for measure. The karmic result of that is that the Jewish people became enslaved. So he enslaved Egypt, and then the Jews became enslaved. I'm like, no, I don't think it's measure for measure. I think it's like he set it up so that the Jews would become enslaved.
Well, I mean, this is all me'et Hashem haytazot, meaning it's all from God, and we do say that God works midah keneged midah. Right. I'm hesitant to apply midah keneged midah in this context because it's usually meant to understand, like even though I don't love the reference to the karmic cycle because I don't think we need it. I mean, midah keneged midah is its own phenomenon, but it's usually one's actions returning to them and God paying us out in the way in which we act in the world, like this notion of the responsive creation. Right. But here it's a little bit different because this is not something Joseph does to the Egyptians and therefore is done to Am Yisrael, right? This is, I think, in many ways an important historical record of a shift that Egyptian society went through. Where to the extent that we have sort of extra biblical historical context for the story of the Yosef and the brothers, and then ultimately the Exodus, it has to do with the shepherd kings, the Hyksos, who were sort of like foreign migrant rulers over Egypt, who essentially reorganized society to their benefit. And on one hand, that allowed the Jews to come in and live. I mean, Paro says you'll live off the fat of the land, right? You're gonna live. Like, what do you mean you live off the fat of the land? Like, what in the middle of a famine, you're gonna invite foreigners in to live the best part of the land? That doesn't happen unless you yourself, as a foreigner, you're basically building your power base. And Yosef just does what he's commissioned. I mean, on some level, what's he supposed to do? He's not going to give away the grain for free. That type of sort of economic altruism that you implied, he wants to make sure that everyone gets through on their feet. That's an anachronism.
Well,
that's an anachronism.
Yes,
they live in a society. They live in a society in which the people of the land are a step above cattle in the eyes of Pharaoh and his aristocrats. I'm not saying that it's morally, desirable. I'm just talking about the sort of reality.
Yes, but the Torah is, I think, kind of showing us this thing. I don't think that the way this Torah is portraying it is this is an awesome thing that happened. It's kind of
No,
something.
On some level, it's the natural conclusion of these sort of monarchical agricultural societies that they oppress humanity. And in many ways, it serves as a warning for whatever society, the great nation that is produced by it. I mean, just think about it.
Yes, but why is it that Yosef is doing that? That's the question here. Okay, like everything you're saying is good, but like Joseph, like he's the emissary to do that?
Because right? This is also from God, and we've seen consistently as a theme through Breshit that creating the right conditions or making the right decisions does not come without cost. This is the conditions, as you says, which will be the core barzel, the sort of iron crucible that will forge Am Yisrael into a nation. But making such a vessel is a critical act. It doesn't mean it's without cost.
And proves again that Joseph is an incredible catalyst in history.
Yes.
Like he is the Jew that serves the role as catalyst, as societal change, and he changes the story of the Jewish people, and he changes the story of Egypt.
Yes.
And there's something about this man, and that's Me'et Hashem. That's the point. Like I'm not like Joseph is like I'm not really just me. I'm really my role is as a catalyst in history. That's what I do. And maybe that's also why I'm not so interpersonal, if you will. My thing is different. I'm here to bring the God's will enacted through history.
A new world order.
A new world order. If people want to hear more about Jewish history, there's no better place than your other podcast here on the Land of Israel Network and on your website, ravmike.com and jewishstory.co, which is the Jewish Story podcast. My brother Josh has become an avid listener of your show, and he loves it a lot. So that's really fun. And also, we have fabulous folks that make this show possible. Our sponsors today, we're featuring Aleph Mail, which is alephmail.com with a PH, right? ALEPH. Aleph Mail, like Alpha Mail, but Aleph Mail. It's makes your beard fabulous, majestic, and I would add sage-like, with 100% natural beard oil and beard balm, handmade in Israel. And if you go to alephmail.com, type in coupon code Yishai10, you will really be
pleasantly surprised.
That's right. You will just smell better, and that's really great, and be a stronger man with the light of Israel. And also, let's say more for women, but still also for men. Our good friends at Salves of Jerusalem. Salves of Jerusalem make fabulous creams and salves that will make your body feel healthy. Also, all made in Israel, and with things like myrrh. Remember, don't mind the myrrh next time. This time, mind the myrrh. That is what I say. Okay, mind the myrrh.
Hey,
all
man.
Right? So that's at salvesofjerusalem.com. Coupon code Yishai. Once again, we'll give you 10% off. They're really fun sponsors for the show. And maybe one last sponsor, our good friends at Blessed by Israel, blessedbyisrael.com. Go to Blessed by BUI. You buy something, you're blessed by Israel, and get something awesome. A lot of people listened to me and got their olive oil for Hanukkah from the Land of Israel. And there's lots of gift-giving reasons coming up. Let's get ready for Tu B'Shvat by getting, which is really the next holiday in about a month and a half. So get something from Blessed by Israel. Also, coupon code Yishai will give you 12, like the 12 tribes off. 12%, like the 12 tribes. You know what I mean.
I got you.
That's right. Rav Mike Feuer, I want to wish you a happy post-Hanukkah. Okay, happy...
Gesunte Winter.
Yeah, Gesunte Winter, a rematriculation into regular non-vacation life.
It's a slow transition.
We need your prayers, Rav Mike, and everybody that's listening right now for a stronger, better Israel. It's clear that we are going through a bit of a, shall we say, a bumpy patch in the near future, with maybe a rise, God forbid, in terrorism. There were 2 attacks yesterday. I forgot to mention there was an attack also in the Old City.
Yeah, attempted shooting
terrorist attacks. That's right. And we also have political issues, and we may have issues with the new American administration. And so all that together makes for a time that we need prayer
Not
and
to mention
light.
the pandemic thing.
Oh, that little pandemic thing. Did I mention that the skies?
Global
My brother,
disruption.
my brother's wife was supposed to fly to see her mother, and she was locked out because the planes are not flying. And so and says Kobe says can't forget about the attack on the Hilltop Youth by the Israeli police. We talked about that in the beginning. So lots of issues right now that we need to kind of flush out in the process of maturing into who we are, which is the Jewish people in the land of Israel. The one light is the continuation of the Abraham Accords, including today's historic flight on El Al from Israel to Morocco, and really a reproach month there that is long in coming because Morocco and Israel have long had, good feelings.
And
now,
very important secret diplomatic relations.
that's right. Secret
Morocco's
ties and diplomatic relations.
played
That's right.
some key roles in time in the last decades.
That's right. Oh, I got a story for you from Morocco before you go. Last story, okay? Can you wait for one more minute, Rav Mike?
Yeah. Let her rip.
Okay. I heard the story this past Shabbat. The Baba Sali, Rabbi Abu Chatzera, was once doing Kiddush Levana at the very last day that you can for sanctifying the new moon. And there were clouds over that new moon. And the Sephardim, they don't say the blessing of new moon if it's covered even a little with clouds. So he takes out his hanky and he goes, and the clouds kind of erase from the sky. And everybody's like, whoa. And they say the blessing. And he puts his hanky away. The clouds come right back. And they say to him, that was a miracle. And he goes, yeah, that is a miracle. But let me tell you why I had that miracle happen to me. Because 25 years ago, when I was much younger, 25 years ago, I heard, where we were living in Morocco, I heard, it was exactly the same situation. It was the last day to say the blessing on the new moon. And I heard, I looked up to the sky and I saw that it was cloudy. And I said, we can't do it. But I heard that if you take the train to Marrakesh, 3 days train ride.
The Marrakesh Express.
The Marrakesh Express, that if you take this train ride over there, the clouds don't penetrate the mountains, and you could say it. So I took the train to Marrakesh, and then there were no clouds there, and I was able to say the blessing for my whole community. And it's because I made that extra effort back then that God has given me the power for miracles today. I think
Nefesh.
Yeah, the moral of the story is right. Self-sacrifice and a real effort towards sanctity and holiness in this great time that we're living in. Rav Mike Feuer, thank you for all your great work. Please check out jewishstory.co and ravmike.com. There we go. That's just that simple.
All right, thanks so much.
God bless you, everybody. Can I even say Shabbat Shalom already? It's just Tuesday.
Yeah, come on.
It's not even Wednesday.
Oh, go for it. Reb Shlomo used to say good Shabbos to Motzei Shabbos.
That's right. Shavua Tov and
Shabbat Shalom.
And good
Take
winter.
care.
God bless you, Rav Mike. Thank you so much.
Chorf Bari. Amen.
All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleisher Show. Thank you so much for being with me. Write me an email yishai@yishaifleisher.com or yishai@thelandofisrael.com. Thanks to all the people that make this show happen, including Rav Mike Feuer and also Ben Bresky, Moshe Herman, and Tabitha, who get it out to you. Thank you so much. God bless you. Stay in touch. Write me an email. Lots of love and blessings from the land of blessings, and shalom.